This is a Lithuanian god. The painter who made him was building something dangerous, a picture of a country the empire was trying to erase. When he painted this, Lithuania was not an independent nation on any map. The Russian Empire had swallowed it, and Lithuanian books in the Latin script had been banned from print. So Mikalojus Čiurlionis painted it instead. Its gods, its forests, its seas and its stars. A whole culture carried in pictures. He died at only 35, before he never saw it become real. And the country he gave a soul to has spent the 100 years since arguing over who he belonged to. That god has a name, Perkūnas, the god of thunder. The Lithuanians held on to him longer than almost anyone else in Europe held on to their old gods. They were among the last people on the continent to be Christianized, and the thunder god never fully left their imagination. By the time Čiurlionis painted him though, Lithuania itself was disappearing. The Russian Empire had absorbed it. Lithuanian had been pushed out of the schools and the courts, and for 40 years it had been illegal to print a Lithuanian book in the Latin script, the language they actually used. People still read those books. They were printed over the border in Prussia and carried back in at night by smugglers who went to prison when they were caught. Čiurlionis was no use in a fight like that. He wasn't a politician or a revolutionary. He was a musician who had picked up a brush fairly late. And what he could offer his country wasn't resistance exactly. It was preservation. He started painting Lithuania as if he were trying to get it on record before it vanished. The thunder god on his mountain, the pine forest going blue at dusk, the wooden crosses that stand at the edge of Lithuanian roads, and the flat, cold sky of the Baltic. None of it looked like patriotic art. There were no soldiers in it, no borders, nothing a censor would think to seize. It looked like dreams, but underneath the dreaming, he was doing something deliberate and something sad. He was helping build a Lithuanian art before Lithuania had a state to hold it, and he would not live to see the real thing arrive. Here is the thing most people miss about Čiurlionis. He did not come to painting as a painter, he came to it as a composer. He had trained in music for years and written hundreds of pieces. By his late 20s, he could have made a quiet life from it. But when he began to paint, he did not leave music behind. He brought its structure with him. That is why so many of his pictures have titles that sound as if they belong on sheet music, sonatas, preludes, fugues. These words were not decoration. He was thinking about how an image could move, how one panel could answer another, how colour and shape could carry rhythm without making a sound. In Sonata of the Stars, the eye does not settle in one place. It moves through the work slowly, following the repeated figures, the falling light, the line of the horizon. The painting does not behave like a window onto the world. It behaves more like a piece of music unfolding. And once you understand that, the stranger works start to make sense. The zodiac becomes a slow turning cycle. The seas, pyramids and stairways do not need to sit in any real place. The suns held in human hands do not have to be explained like symbols in a textbook. He was composing with images. And for a country being pushed out of the official record, that mattered. Music could carry memory, myth could carry language, and a painting could hold a place that politics was trying to erase. For most of his short life, Čiurlionis worked with very little money and very little attention. He painted constantly. He exhibited when he could. A small circle saw what he was doing, but beyond that circle, almost no one did. Then, late in his life, something good happened to him. He met a writer named Sofia Kymantaitė, and in 1909 they married. She believed in the work completely, and for a while he seemed steadier than he had been for years. They were planning a life together. She was expecting their first child. But the same year they married, he began to break down. The exact nature of his illness is hard to know now, and it is too easy to force a modern diagnosis onto it. What is clear is that poverty, exhaustion, overwork, and years of being overlooked had taken their toll. By the start of 1910, he was admitted to a sanatorium outside Warsaw. He never really came home. His daughter was born that spring. He was still in the sanatorium when it happened, and he never met her. For a while, there were signs he might recover. He was working a little again, and there was talk of him returning to his family. Then he became ill. The illness turned to pneumonia. In the spring of 1911, Čiurlionis died. He was only 35 years old. He left behind hundreds of paintings, hundreds of pieces of music, a wife, a daughter who would grow up without him, and the image of a country that still did not officially exist. When Čiurlionis died, he was barely known outside a small circle in Lithuania and a few rooms in St. Petersburg. The work was left behind with people who believed in it, but the man who made it was gone at 35 years old, before most of the world had understood what he was doing. 7 years later, in 1918, Lithuania became an independent country. He missed it by 7 years. The Lithuanian culture he had helped imagine arrived as a country just too late for him to stand in it. And then something strange happened to his reputation. Lithuania claimed him, rightly, as its great national artist. A museum was built around his work in Kaunas, and it is still there. But Lithuania did not stay independent. It was absorbed into the Soviet Union, and the Soviets wanted him too. They put him on a postage stamp. The man who had spent his life painting a Lithuania free of empire was printed decades later on the postage stamp of another empire that had swallowed it. That is the image that stays with me. Čiurlionis had painted gods, forests, seas, stars and music as if they all belonged to the same hidden country. After his death, that country arrived. Then it was taken again. For me, his paintings have a strange, unfinished feeling. They feel less like answers than traces of something he almost reached. He painted a country before it existed. He painted music as something you could see. And he died before the world worked out what to do with either of those things. If this story stays with you, watch the video on Marianne von Werefkin next. She was another artist written out of her own story. She helped build a movement, watched the men around her become famous, and paid for it with her own career. Her story is darker, angrier, and harder to forgive.